Have you ever stopped to wonder why honey just oozes while water splashes all over the place? Or why you have to give that ketchup bottle a good smack to get anything out? Well, the answer to all of that is this really cool property of fluids called viscosity. And today, we're going to unpack the simple, elegant science behind it all.
So here's what we've got lined up. First, we'll get into the whole idea of fluid stickiness. Then we'll look at the simple but brilliant rule that Sir Isaac Newton came up with. After that, we'll meet the fluids that actually follow the rule. And, my personal favorite, the ones that totally break it. And finally, we'll see why any of this really matters in our day-to-day lives.
All right, let's jump right in. The stickiness of fluids. At its core, this is really just about figuring out why some liquids seem to flow so freely, while others just seem to resist moving at all.
I mean, it's such a basic question, right? But the answer is actually pretty profound. They're both liquids, yeah, but their behavior is completely different when you pour them. And this difference, it's not just about how heavy they are. It's about their own internal resistance to flowing.
And that resistance, it's got a name, viscosity. Honestly, the easiest way to get it is to think of it as fluid friction. Just imagine a liquid is made up of a bazillion tiny layers, kind of like a deck of cards. When that fluid flows, those layers have to slide past each other. Viscosity is just the measurement of how much friction there is between those layers. So for something like honey, the layers are super sticky, high friction. For water, the layers just glide right past each other, no problem.
So how do we put a number on this friction? Well, for a ton of common fluids, we have Sir Isaac Newton to thank. He figured out that there's a really simple, elegant relationship at play here.
Okay, I know. Shear, stress, velocity gradient. That sounds super technical. But trust me, the idea behind these terms is something you literally experience every single day. We're going to break it down.
Think about stirring your coffee in the morning. That push you give with the spoon, that's the shear stress. And as you stir, you see that the coffee right next to the spoon moves fast, right? The layer next to that is a little slower, and the coffee right at the edge of the mug is barely moving. That difference in speed between the layers, that's the shear rate. All Newton's law says is, the harder you push, the faster those layers slide past each other. It's a nice, simple, one-to-one relationship. And here it is, the whole thing in a neat little formula. The shear stress, tau, equals the shear rate, du over dy, times that little Greek letter in the middle, mu, or mu. Now that mu is the real star of the show. It's the coefficient of viscosity. It's the one number that tells you exactly how much that fluid resists being pushed around. For honey, mu is a big number. For water, mu is a tiny number. Simple as that.
So any fluid that plays by the simple proportional rule gets a special name. We call them Newtonian fluids. And believe me, they make up a huge chunk of the world around us. The key thing to remember about a Newtonian fluid is that its viscosity, that mu value, is always the same. It's a constant. It doesn't care if you stir it gently or if you put it in a blender. Its thickness just doesn't change. The resistance it gives you just scales up perfectly with how hard you push it.
And here's the perfect example, water and oil. They're both Newtonian, but their mu values are just worlds apart. Water's got low viscosity, flows super easily. Motor oil, way thicker, much more resistant. But, and this is a huge deal, look at the point about temperature. When fluids get hotter, their viscosity drops. This is so important in the real world. It's why your car needs a very specific kind of oil that can work when your engine is freezing cold and also when it's screaming hot.
Okay, now for the fun part. You see, not all fluids are so predictable. Some of them are total rebels. They just don't follow Newton's simple rule. And the way they behave can be completely bizarre.
For a non-Newtonian fluid, that viscosity number isn't constant at all. It actually changes depending on how much stress you put on it. Pushing them harder might make them runnier, or in some really weird cases, it can make them thicker. The relationship is no longer a simple straight line.
And these fluid rebels come in a few different flavors. First up, you've got shear thinning fluids. Think ketchup, paint, even blood. The more you shake them or stir them, the runnier they get. Then you've got the complete opposite, shear thickening fluids. The classic example is oobleck, that cornstarch and water mix which actually gets thicker under stress. And finally, you have things called Bingham plastics, like toothpaste. They basically act like a solid until you squeeze them hard enough to get them to flow. This is shear thinning in action, and we've all lived it. When ketchup is just sitting there in the bottle, it's thick, it's stubborn, it won't come out. But when you shake that bottle or smack the bottom, you're applying shear stress. That stress temporarily breaks down its internal structure, its viscosity drops, and it finally flows out. And then, once it's sitting on your fries, the stress is gone, and it thickens right back up. Pretty clever, right?
And on the flip side, You have the magic of shear thickening. This stuff, oobleck, is amazing. It feels like a normal liquid if you just move your hand through it slowly, but if you punch it, that sudden high stress forces all the little cornstarch particles to jam together, and for a split second, the viscosity skyrockets. It literally becomes a temporary solid. You can actually run across a pool of this stuff.
So, okay, we've got the rule followers and the rule breakers. But why do we care? Well, it turns out that understanding this one fundamental property is kind of everything. It governs processes that are critical to technology, to nature, and even to our own bodies.
Seriously, once you start looking, you'll see viscosity engineering is everywhere. It's in the motor oil that keeps your car engine from grinding itself to dust. It's in the hydraulic fluid that lets a giant excavator lift tons of dirt. It's even inside you. Your blood is a shear thinning fluid, which is what helps it squeeze through all those tiny little capillaries. From getting the perfect creamy texture in yogurt to manufacturing plastics, controlling viscosity is absolutely essential.
At the end of the day, it's a property that defines how our world flows. And understanding it means we can predict things, we can control them, and we can design systems that work the way we want them to, whether that's pumping oil across a country or just designing a paint that won't drip all over your floor.
So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. If you could be a fluid designer, if you had total control over this one property, what would you make? A liquid armor that thickens instantly on impact? A super lubricant that has almost no friction at all? The possibilities are pretty much endless, and it all starts with the simple science of fluid friction.